Today, on Be Something Wonderful, I knew it. My conviction is the only reality. I am your host, Tom Kearin, and this is the Be Something Wonderful studio of higher consciousness, where we help you level up and become the best version of yourself. Creators, welcome back. Big video this morning, big lesson. It started yesterday with a client where we were talking about processes. He was asking, Tom, what's the best process? He had questions on affirming, on scripting, on imagining your end, on all the spiritual greats. We unpacked all of it. But there's one thing I wanted to really make clear to him that I've made clear in many videos now on the channel and to other clients, is that above all, you are the process, right? God is the process. So it doesn't matter what's going on, it's all done through you and as you. Do you see it? And so this is really the message that I got to him, because this applied to another a client who wrote me an email. He shares with me what's going on occasionally before sessions or after sessions. And in this case, this client demonstrated what I was talking about with this client in a session yesterday. That remember, you are the process. God is the process. Your conviction, your assumption is the only reality. What you're perceiving is the perception. You are the perceiver, the perception, you are the perceiving, the perception, and the perceiver. You're all of it, right? Perceiver, perceiving, and perception. There's nothing outside of you. So your conviction is the only reality. Here's the story with my other client who wrote me an email, wanted to tell me this, and the metaphysical lesson behind this. He thought he had a reservation at a restaurant, at a show, right? A restaurant and show for 7:30 this evening, the same evening that it occurred to him that he didn't have a reservation. So that same day he realized, I didn't make the reservation, right? And so he called the restaurant and he, again, this is the first time, he asked and stated what he wanted. I'm sorry, he said to them, I would like a reservation for tonight, right? He was checking, realized he didn't make it, asked them, I would like a reservation for tonight. He called the restaurant, and what did they say? I'm sorry, the show is sold out. So this is the first thing. Calls, forgets that he made the reservation, starts moving into the assumption that that table is his, immediately moves into that conviction that it's done. It doesn't matter that he didn't make the reservation. The reservation was already made. He had it. He created it. And he called the restaurant, I'm sorry, the show is sold out. And remember, he shared with me that it's a small room and there are only about 15 tables. So again, looking at the circumstances, the conditions don't look good. This reminds me of Ida, the show that Neville Goddard talks about, the story of Ida and buying tickets for his brothers. And that if there were signs everywhere that it's in the papers, it was saying that it was sold out, right? And that he manifested those tickets. That's a story in The Duality of Man in a lecture of Neville. I refer to it a little here, but I won't get into it. I've talked about that in other videos. So he said it's a small room with only about 15 tables. So he called his friends and said, don't worry, we'll get a table. So he just called his friends and said, hey, don't worry, we'll get a table. So there's the assumption, there's the conviction. We have a table. In other words, what did Neville say in The Power of Awareness? Claim it and it will respond. Claim what? Claim what you want. Claim your reality. Claim that version of you. Claim that conviction. Claim the assumption that it's already done in that power within you. Because remember, God is the process. You are the process. The I am is the process. It will respond. Do you see it? What is he you don't see, he didn't talk about imagining or affirming. He simply moved to that assumption that, okay, I forgot to do the reservations. It's done. The reservation's there anyway because that's my assumption. That's my conviction. That table's there. To his friends, I'll see you there at 6:30 p.m. So he said he would go a little early. So he called his friend and said, I'll see you there at 6:30 p.m. for that 7:30 show. Confirming in the conviction, right? 15 tables, small room. They're saying there's no tables, right? But he's saying, I'll see you there anyway, right? He said he would go a little early. So interesting here. he says in his email, there was not a doubt in my mind. I knew we would get a table. In other words, he's following the script. He's resisting nothing, but he's also staying in his conviction. He's going a little early, right? Going with the a little early, knowing that that's part of the script. Going a little early, right? To confirm that table that he has assumed, that he has as a conviction that is his, right? He has faith. He has absolute loyalty to the unseen reality, as Neville Goddard would say. That's loyalty to the unseen reality. I had not a doubt in my mind. I knew. It's a knowing. It's a conviction. I knew, right? And then he goes on to say, as he was driving there, it's a 30-minute drive, I just listened to music and one of your YouTube videos. I like that. On the way. No stress at all. 30-minute drive. Not trying to make anything happen. Right? Not calling them nonstop, not nonstop affirming and nonstop imagining, just enjoying his drive, watching a video on my YouTube channel. That's great, right? And he listened to other music. This means he's in the Sabbath, right? He's in that stillness of conviction that it's done, that in my assuming of it, in my simple assumption, in my powerful but simple assumption that I am that power, that I am the process, I am God, there is no other. There is no other reality beside me, beside my consciousness, beside what I'm assuming. In the Sabbath, it knew that I am God. Be still and know I am God. That's what that means, right? In Psalm 46:10, that's the power of that. Be still, be in the Sabbath, be in that conviction and know that you are that. Very powerful. So, he arrives at the restaurant, right? He talks to the woman who he talked on the phone with, who said, hey, sorry, we're sold out. At the restaurant that he called earlier. And once again, she said what? He wanted to see, he said to her, I wanted to see if I could get a table for the show. Again, second time, states what he wants. States it as a fact, knowing that it's done. Once again, what did she say? It's sold out. So it's the asking, it's the knowing, it's the conviction. Again, would like to get a table, stating that intention, right? And again, 3D conditions, 3D circumstances saying it's sold out. Sorry, right? But she says, well, you could sit at the bar, but you can't see the show from the bar. Not his desire, not what he wants, right? That's not what he envisions. That's not his conviction. But what does he do? He continues to persist in the assumption and conviction and continue to follow the script. He goes, I went to the bar and waited for my friends. He goes to the bar, follows the script, not moved by any of this, right? And then he talked to the bartender and the manager and said to them, third time, right? That's why they say 3 times a charge. 3 is a biblical number, also meaning completion, it's done. Like the number 7. The 3 is mentioned hundreds of times in Scripture. And the number 7, like the number 7 in Scripture, it means it's done, it's complete, right? I want to get a table for the show. Again, asked and stated what he wanted for a third time, knowing it's a fact, knowing it's done. Do you see it? This is powerful. I love this story. They said, sorry, the show is sold out. Again. The 3D conditions showing him that it's sold out 3 times, yet he continued to take a stand in his assumption. He continued to stand in that new reality. He continued to persist in being aware of who he is, right? That God in him, that there is no reality outside of what he says, right? The conviction, remaining indifferent to the prevailing 3D conditions. Remaining indifferent because he knows those conditions are coming from him. He gets to decide what the conditions are through his assumption, through his convictions. Prevailing 3D conditions are saying it's sold out. Sorry, it's sold out. Sorry, it's sold out. But he said, okay, here we go again. Okay, no resistance, absolute conviction. I'll say hello to one of the comedians. I guess this was a comedy show. It is a comedy. It's a divine comedy, right? And have a drink. I knew I was getting a table. Once again, here it is. And then he says this. This is great. He says, it's such a strange feeling. I just knew it was done. It is a strange feeling because it's different than 3D confidence. It's different than trying to maneuver and rearrange 3D reality, trying to manipulate it, trying to push people or circumstances or conditions around to get what you want, where you have this inflated confidence in 3D that can be shaken easily by 3D circumstances. It wasn't a flimsy belief that could be shaken by doubt. It was a conviction, right? Not a 3D feeling, a confidence that can be easily shaken. Not a shaky linear belief in the horizontal experience where doubt is possible. Do you see it? Not either one of these. This was a deep conviction of I am that. It is done. I'm the process. I am God. There is no other. I am consciousness. There is no other. I am reality. There is no other. Wow, that's powerful. So, and then it says this, about 10 minutes later, the manager said, you're not going to believe this. It always starts like that, right? But we just had a table of 4 cancel. Table of 4. Perfect table for him. And it's dead center in the room. The manager's saying probably the best table in the room. What does he say? It's perfect. I said perfect. Of course it's perfect. He's still in that conviction. This client declared his conviction, his assumption, his consciousness to be the one and only Lord or law or reality. Besides me, there is no other God. This is what Neville Goddard was repeating from Scripture often, right? Besides my awareness that I have the perfect table, there's no other reality. This is what my client was saying. Besides my awareness that I have the perfect table, there is no other reality. There is no other Lord or law besides me. There is no other God. Wow, powerful. So now that you have discovered your I am, this is Neville Goddard, your consciousness to be God, do not claim anything to be true of yourself that you would not claim to be true of God. For in defining yourself, you're defining God. Such a powerful quote by Neville Goddard. This is what my client got. In defining himself, he knew he was defining God. He knew what's true of what he says, what's true of his conviction is true of reality. Besides me, there's no other. Beside me, there's no other. Do not claim anything to be true of yourself that you would not claim to be true of God. Do not use God's name in vain, right? That the table's not possible, that the circumstances, it's sold out, right? Wow, Neville manifesting Ida tickets. I simply assumed that I had the tickets for my 2 brothers. I assumed I gave them the tickets. Neville Goddard demonstrating the same thing, just an assumption, a strong, powerful assumption that I gave them the tickets, that I had the tickets, and then he manifested the tickets. I unpacked that in an early video, maybe about 1.5 years, 2 years ago now. So if you want to, I think you can find it if you search by Neville Ida, by that word, Ida tickets or something, because I think that's unpacked somewhere in the video. And maybe we'll do it again, but I just really wanted to just give you this example. I knew it. My conviction is the only reality. This is a beautiful masterclass in standing in your conviction no matter what. I am your host, Tom Kearin, and this is the Be Something Wonderful studio of higher consciousness, where we help you level up and become the best version of yourself. Creators, thank you. Thank you for the 40,000 subscribers and climbing. I'm just thrilled, right? And thank you for being here. Thank you for liking and sharing and commenting on the videos. Thank you for joining our Facebook group, the Be Something Wonderful Ambassadors, at facebook.com/groups/Be Something Wonderful, where you're now sharing insight and guidance with others and asking for insight and guidance from others. I love it. Thank you for being with us on Instagram and Twitter at Tom Kearin, and for joining our membership channel. There's a link below if you haven't joined and you're interested. Thank you for joining. On the live stream this Sunday, May 21, 2023, we're going to have Live 4 with me, live stream, right here, live from Las Vegas, live, at 9 a.m. in the morning, Pacific Coast Standard Time. We're going to answer your questions. Send your questions ahead of time to info@besomethingwonderful.com. We'll post again a reminder of this live stream that's this Sunday morning. And for all that information and more, just go to our website anytime at tomkearin.com or besomethingwonderful.com. Creators, with great love, with great light, and infinite gratitude, this is Tom with Be Something Wonderful. We'll see you soon.